Welcome to Supply Chain Now, the voice of global supply chain. Supply Chain Now focuses on the best in the business for our worldwide audience, the people, the technologies, the best practices, and today's critical issues, the challenges and opportunities. Stay tuned to hear from those making global business happen right here on Supply Chain Now.
Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. Scott Luton and Kevin L. Jackson with you here on Supply Chain Now. Welcome to today's show. Kevin, how are you doing today?
Yes. You know what? I'm not too happy. My grass is starting to change colors to a brown. I better get out there and get some water on that grass.
But so,
How you
hey,
doing?
summer's here. Summer is
Summer
here.
is here. They're supposed to be getting hundreds next week. Jeez.
Well, it's sizzling out where you are, and it's sizzling right here on Supply Chain Now because we got a very hot episode here today, hot discussion. We got a couple of dynamos from a global leader in the beauty product industry where we're going to be diving into things, of course, supply chain leadership, change management, and especially one of my favorite topics here, how AI and the human workforce can be powerfully combined to do big things in the industry, all that and a whole lot more. So stay tuned, folks, for an informative, enlightening, and entertaining conversation with a couple of wonderful leaders here today. Kevin, should be a great show, huh?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. How can AI help beauty? Woo!
Oh, good stuff. Good stuff. Hey, today's episode is presented in partnership, of course, with our friends at Microsoft, who's also doing some pretty cool things in the industry, helping to move us all forward successfully. More on that a bit later. All right. So with that said, Kevin, let's introduce our featured guests here today. We are very pleased to welcome Chiara Lauder, Senior Vice President, Brand Value Chain with the Estée Lauder Companies, and her colleague, Florent Guillet-Keough, Vice President, Global Supply Chain Strategy and Transformation. Chiara, how are you doing?
Wonderful.
It is
Kevin. I have the challenge that summer has started and I need to stay hydrated. As you
Oh, yeah, stay hydrated. Get your water. I know you know about being hydrated.
That's right. And as we're going to find out, it helps fuel those marathons that Chiara's running. But great to see you again. Really enjoyed our time together in Atlanta not too long ago. And Florent, it is such a pleasure to meet you as well.
Nice meeting you. Really looking forward to that discussion.
We are too. So, hey, on that note, before we get into the good stuff, Kevin, let's get inspired by some of the cool things that Chiara and Florent are doing outside, staying healthy, competing. So, Chiara, as we talked about last time in Atlanta, you're in the midst of running this 6 major marathons around the world. Tell us about that.
So yeah, that's my little secret work-life balance. I just do marathon to just keep healthy and active and do enjoying hobby with my husband. And I confess to Scott, I have a challenge. Before my 50, I want to run the 6 major marathon across the world. This is a good way to stay active and keep discipline, and at the same time to travel the world. So I have New York upcoming now in October. And what is left is Boston and Tokyo. So I'm looking forward to run those 2 soon too.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. I used to do a lot of running, but my knees gave out on me a while ago.
Hopefully they won't give up before my 6 major tasks.
That's right. Hey, yes. We're going to think, we know they won't. We're going to think very optimistically. And I can't wait to see some of your pictures from the upcoming New York, Boston, and Tokyo marathon. So good stuff there, Chiara. Now, Florent, we understand, we've done our homework a little bit. You and Chiara both are competitive when it comes to running and doing things outdoors and stuff. Tell us about that, Florent.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I've been running with Chiara, so there's no chance I can compete against her on, long distance runs. But obviously, I love doing, any kind of activities. And I still remember the days when I got my first child and I was wondering, oh gosh, how will I basically, keep that balance of, doing some activities, looking after, the kids and having, a good family life and still, going to work. And I remember that day where, my wife was out, doing some groceries, and I felt like, okay, I have a baby at home. What do I do now? I want to do some sport. And I put, a sticker on the table, on the dining table, telling my wife, hey, I'm done. I take the kid and I go running. and that's basically, how it all started, took the stroller. And since then, I bought another kind of, stroller, and we basically do all kind of activities together, be it running, skiing, or anything. So it's, to me, kind of the moral of that story is, routine is good, but to me, it's more about habits. How do you basically constantly adjust? And that's how I basically, run and do activities those days as a family and not on my own any longer.
Oh, Florent,
Wow.
I love
Yeah.
that. So
I visualize Florent running with the stroller down the banks of the Seine. Wow.
well, and also, Florent, I love that what you and Chiara have kind of set the bar for all of us when you get out there and maybe better manage our work-life balance. But I love how you talked about the importance of habits and good habits. And we're going to talk about some great supply chain leadership and change management habits here today. So nice segue. Is that okay? Chiara and Florent and Kevin got a lot of good stuff to get into here, Kevin.
Yes, absolutely.
So, Chiara, let's do this. I bet most of our audience, except maybe 3 people, will know about the Estee Lauder companies and the prestige beauty industry that y'all are leaders in. But just for a couple of people out there that may not, tell us, if you would, let's level set on a little bit about your company.
Absolutely, with pride and passion. I love the company I work for. So Estee Lauder Company is a company that was founded, as the name say, by our founder Estee Lauder. So he gave the name to the company. And I always say this little nugget. You see, in the name of our company, there is Estee Lauder Company. So this is a reflection, as we are a prestige leading beauty leader across 4 different categories: makeup, skincare, hair care, and fragrance. And we are made by over 25 at this point brand-led companies that they have all retained a very unique DNA, heritage, way to really target consumer segment. But what they are accumulated by is a common mission to really bring superior product that they are really delighting and they are favorite to our consumer. So this is make a very unique role for us in the supply chain to maintain the uniqueness, but at the same time drive a leverage scale behind the scene.
Wow, Kevin, that is quite an ecosystem. Your thoughts there, Kevin?
Yeah, I can imagine all those different products, combinations, the customer set and segments that you're targeting. That's a huge challenge, especially as things change.
That's right. That's right. And that's why we are going to be diving into, because I'll tell you, there's going to be lots of things I think we can learn from both Chiara and Florent in terms
Yeah.
of supply chain innovation, technology innovation, and optimizing that customer experience, which is so critical. So, folks, stay tuned. Florent, if we could, now that Chiara's kind of set the table and established that context about the Estee Lauder companies, what does the supply chain footprint look like at the organization?
I loved one of the words you just used, which is ecosystem. So to me, I would describe our footprint as extremely diverse. So diverse in terms of geographical presence, diverse in terms of talent. And it's an ecosystem. It's an ecosystem of internal stakeholders and external partners. And that's the way I'm thinking about our footprint. So when you think about, I would describe it as from the consumer to the consumer. And in between, you have so many steps. It's like, reading the consumer mind and turn that into an idea and then a product that you can deliver. And it's not a one-man show. It's basically an ecosystem of talented employees and very engaged and committed workforce, passionate about our products, but also external partners. And I use the word partners, on purpose. We are all in it as an ecosystem. And that's the way I'm thinking about our supply chain ecosystem and footprint.
Florent, wow. I love that.
You remember mentioned this in Atlanta, which I think it was a nice nugget to add to what Florent said. One of the things that we have been really intentional is to broaden the ecosystem both internally and externally, not only reaching to our consumer and retailer, but also on the upstage with our internal and external vendors, for example, that they are expanding our supply chain footprint and strengthening definitely our overall agility and responsiveness, which as well Kevin was referring. And I remember we were together, other company are doing. So Estée Florent has been actually pioneering this in our company and really like trying to strengthen the boundaries of this ecosystem.
Oh, I love it.
Wow.
Love it. Kevin, I'm going to come to you. First, though, I want to make sure one more level setting question is I'd love for Chiara and Florent to kind of tell us about their role and where they spend their time. And Chiara, let's start with you. Tell us about your role.
So this is a unique role. Spent my prior life in P&G, and walking into a Estée Lauder company was really a diverse, as we said, multi-category, multi-brand, with a very unique heritage that we wanted to protect. So my function, which is indeed as part of the supply chain, but at the same time is part of the brands. That's why the name brand value chain play really the role of the orchestrator of bringing all the different stakeholders, both from the commercial side into the value chain and vice versa. And I call it my role as the translator. Maybe being an Italian, living playing my strength is really translating what really the value chain in service of the brand to really driving, much more delightful consumer performance and experience, by at the same time making sure that the commercial partner and stakeholder really understand how we can strengthen the value chain responsiveness in our end. So both ways, definitely a dialogue that goes both sides.
Chiara, I love it. The translator, the orchestrator. I love your comments there. Florent, tell us about your role.
Yes, sure. So I'm basically looking after our what we call strategy and transformation. I rather describe it as strategy and value realization, much more than transformation. And the reason why I'm saying that, it's all about crafting that vision for the foreseeable future for entire global supply chain organization, but more importantly, turning it into tangible value for the business. And that's the value realization part, which is super close to my heart, because you need a strategy, but you also need execution plans. If you're missing one of the two, it simply doesn't work. So it's how do you basically inspire the organization with some very ambitious plans? How do you think big? But then how do you also get that started and scale and drive value for the organization? So, I mean, to some extent, in a similar position as Chiara in terms of orchestrating across the different functions, the different regions, and the different brands, and bringing that cohesion for the supply chain community in Estée Lauder.
Oh, I love it, Kevin. I love you know me. I'm a real practical person, and I love how Florent talked about how passionate he is about that really important conversion between the vision to driving tangible value across a very talented ecosystem, especially their emphasis on the human factor, which of course you and I talk about all the time. But what'd you hear there in their roles, Kevin?
Well, I want to make sure everybody picked up on the aspect of being two-way. Both Florent and Chiara, they talked about supply chain, they talked about value chain, but most times you think about it as sort of a one-way street, right? Goes from raw materials to production to distribution to the customer. But they both talked about the importance of it being two-way, how they listen to the customer, how they listen to their partners, how they listen to the ecosystem. And I think that's critical when you're talking about value realization, because it has to be, the relationship has to be valuable to both sides of the transaction. And I really like that.
Yes, all sides. The whole ecosystem's got to find a way to win. I love that, Kevin. Okay, Chiara, you mentioned earlier we had a wonderful time at a recent Reuters supply chain conference. I really enjoyed and was inspired by our discussion and a lot of your thoughts you shared with the audience. We got a lot of feedback around that session as well. So as you think back, I know you've moved several mountains probably since that time together. What was a couple of key takeaways from our conversations at the event, Chiara?
I think it was a rich discussion, and we had a very, really beautiful panel with us as well, other players too. And for me, that there were three nuggets I really learned from them, because I think these are discussions that they always bring your audio more to the perspective that you already built throughout your personal experience. The first one, it was so clear, Scott, that post-COVID, we are really operating in a very different landscape. And which then I think the big aha that was common across many industry, many categories, companies that they play in a very different field and as well function, is that we have to be closer to the consumer and the retailer, but also faster. And this is where the second part of this discussion today will permeate, is really about digital tools that they can help us to do that. So for me, that was a big aha, was common across, and it was great to share experience. And the second side part, the human side part, is system cannot operate and bring the level of harmonization, synchronization, value realization we just talked in the past few minutes alone. It has to be system plus people. And I'm sure that bring really the harmonization and synchronization which we're targeting for. And that's why the digital twin, I always call the digital twin, is also nice to system and people, system and human. So that was a lovely part. I think one of our additional panel that we just attended that was talking about the child that you have to nurture, which is in bring the to the eye, which I love it. So that was my probably takeaway that I'll probably remember as the most.
Love that. Florent, which one of those? I know which one of those sticks out for me. What about you, Florent?
I mean, building on what Chiara said, I love that concept of co-pilot between the human and the technology. And the way I'm thinking about it is to put, the human, to have people-centric approach, and then build technology, build tools, build processes together. It's not one against the other. It's not one before the other. It's how can we basically partner together and create that kind of magic combination, magic outcome by partnering and moving away from that fear of technology. So I think it's all about people centricity and all about collaboration between the people and the technology. And I love, without talking the Microsoft language, I love the concept of co-pilot.
Yes.
We need together. And, in some areas, we human will be more advanced than the machine. In some others, the machines will be more advanced than us. How can we work together? How can we partner?
Love that, Florent. And as an aviator, Kevin, I bet that co-pilot analogy works well for you, huh?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's all about finding synergy, right? And, as people, you mentioned fear, people were feared robots, right? But now in our language, we now have cobot, which is more of a synergistic viewpoint, right? And it goes the same when it comes to thinking and working. You want that partner that's working with you, that's synergistic, that you can support and that they can support you. So that's what's sticking in my mind.
Yes, that magical combo, as Florent put it. I love that. All right. So Chiara and Florent and Kevin, one of my favorite takeaways from that discussion, and it's been a common thread in many discussions here in recent years, was the critical importance of hiring in, investing in, and developing digital talent to fuel competitive advantage, right? So Chiara, starting with you, your thoughts on that topic, the digital talent side.
Yes, I find it an element that I love. As you said, we probably need to hire the right talent and bring that know-how very nicely in. There is an element which I'll deviate, which I love it, that we do in ELC, that we call a reverse mentorship. It's really bringing that mentorship that come from the younger generation, much more digital savvy, to maybe more of a senior generation, which I'm joining now, to really,
no way.
And make sure that those a talent that we are bringing in as well, alloying and building the right culture, digital culture, and as well expertise to the higher ranking of the organization. So that's one element that we have invested really intentionally in ELC. And secondly, I agree what you mentioned about the skill set is super important to bring talent iron, but as well to make sure that those talent then are part then of the change management strategy. So they are made in and they are engaged in the transformation, so not just as consultant, but as a leader, even at the younger generation.
Kiara, what a great, wonderful perspective there, especially. I love the reverse mentorship. Florent, what would you add when it comes to really hiring, investing in, making all of that a deliberate part of your overall talent strategy? Your thoughts there?
I think we need a good balance of depth and breadth. And in those days, we're talking a lot about digital talent. I'm not so sure we have a common definition of what it means. And I think we also need to put that in the context of our respective business needs. In other words, I'm convinced that good level of expertise and depth, then at the end of the day, we also need to decide how do we access it? Do we build it in-house? Do we acquire it? Do we borrow? So I think that goes back to what is our strategy to basically acquire those very specific skills and technical expertise. At the same time, I'm a strong believer of the need for our talent to have even more breadth in build their business acumen, build their communication skills. And it goes back to what I was defining as that magic combo. To me, that's the same. How can you basically blend the depth with the breadth to make sure that those two populations can talk the same language and can come up with the best solution which are fit for the business needs?
Well said, Florent. I tell you, we did a whole series just focus on digital talent, and I love Kevin how he started with defining what we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Kevin, your quick thoughts.
Well, everyone thinks when you think about talent and bringing on skills, many times you're only thinking about the current requirements, what current skills they have, what current talent you need. But it's really important as you deal with change to have someone that's talented in dealing with change, because we're in an era of constant change, and digital transformation isn't a one-time thing. It is a constant thing. So I'd be interested in understanding how they view that as a skill set or as a talent dealing with constant change.
Yeah, no doubt. We have our work cut out for us, both with the war for talent that's out there, but also the impact of how transformation, change, disruptions, putting pressure on the current and future talent. And one last thing I want to touch on, Kiara, because you made a great point before we move on reverse mentorship. There's lots of finger pointing when it comes to all the different generations, but I think the beauty of having all these wonderful generations in our teams is we can learn something from all of them. And I love deliberate programs where we really focus on mentorship, value exchanges, go moving in all directions.
Yeah.
Right. So that is a wonderful part of y'all's deliberate strategy at Estee Lauder companies. Okay. So we're going to keep going down this path of our focus on the human factor. And I know that you are doing a lot of cool things, Kiara, as we talked about in Atlanta, when it comes to artificial intelligence. And you're doing it, I think, from what a little bit I've heard, the right way, because you're investing and preparing and training your workforce prior to launching it here and there and everywhere. And that's so critical. Florent, tell us, let's start with you first. Tell us, how do y'all do that?
Yeah, so and again, to build off what we just said, I think that element of learning agility is key to me. Because, we talk a lot about change, we talk a lot about transformation. To me, at the end of the day, that's simply the business we're in.
Yeah.
We can't constantly say we are changing from one thing to another. We're transforming, and we launch, a very wide range of new programs. At the end of the day, that's the world we're in. That's how we operate. So it's how do we basically have that learning agility to constantly adapt. And one of the things that we're doing, which also is very relevant in the context of AI, which is something relatively new. It's not new, but it's relatively new in regards to the scale that it's taking, or the opportunity that it can drive, is to constantly flow resources to the work. And we have that concept internally of flow to work as well as fast to action. How can we deploy our top talent to support our top priorities? which means that today I can work on a project in manufacturing, and tomorrow I will be working on a project in quality. I'm not necessarily building that deep expertise, but I build that breadth, and then I can apply the best technological solution to solve for it. So to me, the concept of learning agility is just key and paramount those days and in the near future, while acquiring skills and capabilities is, we have plenty of tools to do that. Now, if you don't have the agility or the curiosity to basically learn and acquire those skills, then it doesn't work.
Well said. Agility just doesn't just happen. We got to invest and bake it into the organization. I love that, Florent. Chiara, what would you add? How do y'all prepare and ensure the human factor is ready to go as we enter in continuous improvement, innovation, oftentimes powered by artificial intelligence?
So I'll address something that I think definitely we have adopted for as we introduce some of the digital tool with a few examples on AI, but I think it resonates more or less for every single transformation. For me, the biggest thing that we can provide, and this is across all levels, from leadership and the people that are driving the transformation. The first thing is clarity on the what that we want to initiate, for example, specifically on AI, the how, and the why. And I'll give an example that I think, Scott, we were referring to, of course, in the beauty industry, it's super important we stay at the pace, and we actually outpace some of our competitors in terms of innovation and speed to market. And this is important, and where we actually strengthen our capabilities through AI. For example, sharpening our demand forecast accuracy through statistical model, which is then generated by AI. In this case, of course, you could, as you can see, as I'm talking through, it's super important that what are we doing, which is then really make sure that we have a clarity on a forecast accuracy in an innovation space, which of course there is newness. So there is a question and an incognita already in itself. And the second is the how we're doing. So leveraging historical statistical data that then can enrich the future demand forecasting. And the why we are doing is super important, that we balance the speed at the right cost. So it's super important we found that with that sweet spot. So that was just an example that we tried to bring this through. And we made it very clear to our organization. So it's not a threat to our current demand planner, but it's an enrichment. So that's one. And the second one is consistency, Scott. For me, it's super important we stick to the plan as we enter a new world that is made as well with digital tool. We continue, we learn. We always say, right, in everything we do in innovation, is super important. We fail small and we learn fast. So there's a lot that we have to do to evolve it. And this is a perfect space to do that, to continue to iterate and build upon.
Oh, clarity and consistency, the beauty of clarity and consistency. I love that, Chiara. Kevin, what'd you hear there?
Well, I actually heard a focus on the people. And that's critical whenever you're doing change management. They need to know, what's in it for me. in short, so as long as you're thinking about, once again, this two-way street, you have to provide value to everyone. Everyone has to feel that this is the right thing. And you have to take the time to explain to them the why. Why are you doing this? And how you are accomplishing common goals. So you got it. You're right on.
Well, you teed us up because you're reading my mind, Kevin, because I'm talking about change management next. And I love your emphasis there on the communication piece of that. So, Chiara, I want to continue with you here. When it comes to change management, which seems like it's always been important timelessly, but it seems like there's a greater emphasis based on the velocity that so many organizations are operating at these days. What are a couple of key aspects to your approach when it comes to change management beyond the clarity and the consistency, Chiara?
I love it because indeed we could call it and stay on the sea. Maybe it's my name that inspired that of the change management. So because to the consistent clarity, I would think that there are three important elements, and they are all human. The first one is commitment. I think it's commitment across the level, all level of the organization. Super important that the leader are walking the talk in the new space, and there is a very clear personal engagement in that transformation we are trying to do. And that is very true for AI and many other transformation we're leading with today in the company. The second side is celebrate. So let's have a measure of this new transformation, specifically in AI, and make sure that we celebrate the small successes. So we talked about iterating. So as we measure progress, let's celebrate and take a moment, because that will drive a cultural change across the organization.
Yeah.
And the last one is obviously care. It's super important. Change are always difficult. There is an empathetic side that need to come along any strategy of change management. So you, Kevin, you touched upon it a little bit. Make sure that it's super clear the why, what is in it for me, that person. So the care of the human aspect, people do not feel threatened by any changes, but they need to see something that is coming along in that to win in that transformation.
Chiara, I love it. I love when we get good frameworks, wonderful frameworks here, and you've just given us a new one. So really appreciate that. Florent, what would you add to your critical aspects of your change management approach?
I would maybe add a few things to complement what Chiara just said. One is, and as much as possible, every program is slightly different, but as much as possible, bring those stakeholders and the impacted individuals along as early as possible. So that it doesn't come as a top-down executive decision, but it's basically a project where we are all in it together. And then it should help for everyone to understand the why and what is in it for me.
Yeah.
I think the other thing I would add is be super honest and transparent and acknowledge things. Acknowledge that we don't have all of the answers from day one. We don't have a plan for everything. The plan will evolve. There will be a lot of ambiguity. And I think we will need to learn how to navigate that ambiguity and how to be comfortable in navigating that ambiguity. I can't remember of any single experience where we entered into a major multi-year transformational program and here's the plan. And we're all gonna stick to the plan, and these are stage gates, and we're gonna deliver it in full, and we're gonna close it and celebrate. I've never seen that. Maybe it is somewhere. I've never seen that. So
no, it doesn't happen.
I think that element of being very honest, very authentic, on saying, yeah, maybe we missed that gate. So be it. Let's move on. Let's not, spend time. I mean, we need to learn from the past, but we also need to look forward. How do we course correct? How do we course correct fast? And how do we adjust and constantly adapt as a team and be okay to navigate ambiguity and face uncertainty is to me also a critical, I would call it a soft skill, a critical mindset, a critical behavior to drive some of those programs and make them successful.
Florent, I love that authenticity. The world cannot get enough of that. Kevin, your comment on what we heard in terms of their change management approaches.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Maybe I sound like I'm coming from left field, but here we have Italian, we got French, we got English, and we got Georgian. But we're all speaking the same language, right? And that's what's important when it comes to change management. Everyone has to speak the same language, no matter where they were born.
That's right. And dispelling fear. Right. They both spoke a little bit to that, and that's so critical. And Chiara, when we were together in Atlanta, one of the things I love that you said that I know is part of your mantra there is bringing along all the stakeholders together, leaving no one behind. Chiara, really quick, would you expound on that?
Absolutely. And I love it because it's important as we're living this every single day these days in Estée Lauder companies, as you are in the middle of a transformation, with aim to decomplexify. We call it and modernize our way of working. So there is a major restructuring performance plan that is undergoing. It's super important. Will make us stronger tomorrow. So it's super important. All the stakeholders are very savvy and aware, and they can input to the other part of the organization transformation. For me, the biggest enabler for sure is make sure what we share every single day, that across all the different parts of function, region, and brand, we have shared the KPI or measure of success. How do we celebrate the success and how we measure success together is the single key, and it's super important as part of the engagement process, and then to finalize the outcome for it. A little bit like we were mentioning, Scott, at that time, we were in the pre-Euro Cup. We are in the middle of Euro Cup, since you were mentioning several.
Yes.
It's given the analogy, Kevin. You gave me the assist. I have to do the reference, right?
I love it. Well,
That's great.
And what I love more is your intent approach on decomplexifying the organization and what we're set out to do. And again, in this environment where things are moving faster and faster and faster, how can we change how business is done, derive greater outcomes while taking care of the team and making it easier for them to have a successful day in and day out? Kevin, your quick comment there?
Yeah, I wanted to maybe pull a little bit on that fear string. And we also talked a bit about AI, artificial intelligence. As AI becomes more and more part of business, Chiara, how do you prevent those saboteurs that try to leverage fear to, slow down the change?
This is first of all, we have to understand indeed, or the people are adverse to change, so we can target exactly and bring them along. And as we were talking about, we talked a lot about Copilot, comment, and so on. The most important thing is taking the time to explain that there is no AI power without human power. That's
That's good. That's good.
There is an exponential value that actually we can reverse it back. The I can add to the human power, but never alone. So this is, for me, one doesn't diminish the other, but it just augment the power that human can bring along.
Love it.
That's good. I like that.
In the last few months, Florent, I want to change gears here. It was announced that your organization, Estée Lauder Companies, would be expanding its global strategic relationship with Microsoft. What are some of the key outcomes that this enhanced partnership is expected to deliver? And Florent, let's start with you.
Yeah, so when we're thinking about AI in the context of the Estée Lauder companies and supply chain within Estée Lauder, we're kind of trying to achieve few business outcomes. One which is around efficiencies. So where can we utilize AI to reduce time spent on certain tasks? Another one is around effectiveness. So how can we be more effective in targeting our consumers with our products? And the third one, which I think is also part of our DNA, is how can we use AI to innovate, to create new ideas, to create new products, to create new ways of working. So we're kind of thinking about AI to deliver on those three business outcomes. Now, to get there, and I was talking about the concept of the ecosystem. To get there, we need to partner. And we need to partner internally and externally. And that's where some of the partnerships, like the one we announced the other week with Microsoft, comes into play. So first, we've been collaborating with Microsoft for years and years. But we basically want to take that partnership to the next level and really think big with them, as they are a leading company in that space, to basically help us leapfrog in some part of our business. So that's one of the critical and foundational partnership that we are engaged with. But it also goes beyond the partnership with Microsoft. We also partner with academics, we partner with associations, we partner with our own colleagues. So it's all about mobilizing that energy and that ecosystem all together to go after a very specific and targeted outcome. We don't want to go after everything. We want, at least within supply chain as well, to target few areas where we believe we can apply AI and we can drive what I would call speed to value. So we can really leverage the power of that technology to drive business outcomes. And to me, that's the name of the game, to also move away from the saboteur. You were mentioning that. We build on the champions, the ones who will basically have raised their hand and say, hey, I volunteer, I want to go, I want to pilot, I want to test, I want to scale. I might fail. But then they become the ambassadors, the champions in our organization to take those partnerships to the next level and drive real value for our company and our business.
Florent,
fear not.
That's
Move
right.
forward.
Well, I heard there, think big, go big, win big together, with a big emphasis on that speed to value. Chiara, what would you add in terms of this big new enhanced partnership with Microsoft?
The element that's exciting me the most, maybe as a consumer myself, is a collaboration we are doing, setting up the AI Innovation Lab. It's specifically dedicated to leverage existing data library asset that they are existing internally and externally through the power of Microsoft, of course, AI digital tool to bring local relevant trends activation to market. This will be a massive unlock for us in the supply chain, of course, that we enable to reach and leverage product claim data that are already available in our corporate, which is made by 20 plus brands, as we talked about. We have so much richness, much more relevant to the consumer that they are locally in different geography, but as well with much faster speed. So this is definitely the element, and I'm extremely inspired, and I think it transformed the beauty industry. So we are really looking forward to driving definitely something unique here.
Chiara, I love it. It's not just speed, it's operating at successful speed and velocity. And I love y'all's emphasis on that. Kevin, we heard a lot there from Florent and Chiara, both on this Microsoft partnership, but also lots of other partnerships and new value they're creating for the whole ecosystem. And of course, all those, their global consumers around the world, which are so important, customers rather. So tell us, Kevin, quick blurb, because Microsoft's doing a lot of this stuff, powering these types of things across the retail space. Any additional thoughts there, Kevin?
Well, I want to sort of highlight the fact what's foundational to everything that both Florent and Chiara have been saying is that two-way street. She just mentioned with Microsoft, they're going to actually identify local trends in order to drive product innovation. So that's hearing, listening, interacting with your customers as part of your ecosystem, right, Florent?
You're right on. I think at the end of the day, now is the time to capture the value of AI. So we've been talking extensively about that technology now for a couple of years, and things really accelerated over the next 12 to 18 months. Good news in Estée Lauder. I mean, before talking about AI, we started to commission AI in a number of our processes. Now is the time to accelerate and scale.
Yes.
And to also, drive the value and show the value that it can bring to the organization and also to our consumers.
Love it. I wish we had a couple more hours with Chiara and Florent and Kevin here today, but we'll have y'all back for sure. And Chiara, I tell you, as much of a dynamo as you are in person that we were able to see in Atlanta, you're a dynamo virtually too. And
hopefully that energy came across.
You're quite the 1-2 punch together, you and Florent. So Chiara, how can folks connect with you and the Estee Lauder companies?
There are multiple ways. Of course, we look forward to communicate and publish this podcast, and we look forward to hear any feedback and any input to what the conversation is going through. We have several other digital tools as well through LinkedIn page and other social. So we look forward really to hear back. And the power is actually to hear it from our consumer, listener, and meeting in person. So we are definitely building on any feedback. So we look forward to many.
Oh, we did too. I can't wait to get an update on all these cool things you are doing. And Florent, I'm assuming folks can connect with you across social and that company website and all?
Yes, for sure. They can. And I would also encourage everyone to connect through our products.
Yes.
Amazing.
Yes.
That's amazing products. I think that's the best way to connect with Estee Lauder.
Well, and wide varieties we established on the front end, from makeup, skincare, hair care, fragrance, and beyond. And the cool things you are doing to, again, optimize that powerful customer experience, especially in this light where we're all consumers, we're very demanding, aren't we? And you got supply chain leaders that are stepping up and making it happen and delivering on that value proposition and brand promise. So big thanks, folks. I hate to leave it here, But to all of our listeners and viewers across the globe, thanks for being here. Hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I have. Big thanks to Chiara Ladani and Florent Guille with the Estée Lauder companies. Thanks to both of y'all for being here. Big thanks to our collaborative partners over at Microsoft as well, helping us to bring these wonderful conversations, ideas, inspiring ideas, I'd call it, to our global audience. Kevin, always a pleasure to knock out these conversations with you.
No, thank you very much. I'd be remiss to if I didn't say that. I know Microsoft, we talked about Copilot today, how they are elevating retail with Copilot for retail and improving employee productivity and efficiency by harnessing the power of generative AI. So I really appreciate what the Estee Lauder's company is doing and how they're working with their entire ecosystem to move forward. And if you're interested in learning more about digital transformation, just check me out on LinkedIn and on the Supply Chain Now.
That's right. Hey, you heard a pilot there talking about Copilot. You got to take that to the bank and be sure to connect with Kevin L. Jackson. You can find him across social and tune into Digital Transformers with Kevin L. Jackson wherever you get your podcasts. Okay, folks, again, hope you enjoyed this episode. Be sure to find Supply Chain Now, Digital Transformers, wherever you get your podcasts. But here's the onus. Here's the onus that you all have. Chiara and Florent brought it here today. Really shared a lot of practical, innovative leadership, and they're leading by action, not words, right? So take one thing that our panel brought here today and put it into action. Your teams are ready. They're ready to change the business, be more successful, and lean in to what's next. It's exciting, right? So let's lead by deeds, not words. So on behalf of all of our team here at Supply Chain Now, Scott Luton challenging you to do good, give forward, be the change that's needed, and we'll see you next time right back here at Supply Chain Now. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for being a part of our Supply Chain Now community. Check out all of our programming at supplychainnow.com and make sure you subscribe to Supply Chain Now anywhere you listen to podcasts. And follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram. See you next time on Supply Chain Now.